Ono Ikanone.
How's it going?
Welcome to Speak Up St. Louis.
Thank you for having me.
For everybody that doesn't know, I worked on that.
All right.
And I wanted to make sure I got it right because it's important to make sure that we are saying folks' names the way that they should be said. So thank you for your patience with me, Ono.
And thank you for putting in the effort and practicing to get that.
It's the little things sometimes.
Right.
But, but thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. Really excited to talk about all the things that you're up to, especially with the hosting and the food and all the great things. But we know there's a lot of story that goes into where you are right now. Yeah. So if you want to take some time to tell folks who you are and some of the work that you do.
Yeah, my name is Ono Ikanone. That's the full name. I didn't want to put you through that. But Ono Ikanone. I'm originally from Nigeria. Born in Nigeria, raised in Nigeria. I moved to St. Louis when I was 14. Moved directly to St. Louis, went to Hazelwood East in North County. I know we
Spanish Lake.
Yeah, I know we shared that you're a North County kid as well.
Right.
Great learning experience, let me put it that way. I feel like Hazelwood East at the time was going through quite a transition. And it was a huge transition for me because I came from Nigeria. I was in private school in Nigeria, an international private school in Nigeria. So I knew a lot about what was going on in the U.S., music, culture, and all of those things. But I wasn't quite prepared for it coming from that to Hazelwood East. A lot of fights. It was a tough time. So it was quite a transition for me. But that was high school, learned a lot, met a lot of great people. Then I moved to St. Louis University. That's where I started my college career. But I ended up graduating from University of Missouri St. Louis. So that was my first college degree. And then I went back to school again and did an engineering degree at Missouri University of Science and Technology. I actually studied petroleum engineering. Idea was to go back to Nigeria, and since Nigeria is one of the leading oil-producing nations, I wanted to get involved with that. But didn't quite work out. I think that destiny kept on bringing me back to St. Louis. The whole time I was in high school, college, through my time in college, I did a lot of party promotions through my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. That's where it started. I kind of was the chair of events planning at the time, so I got to know some St. Louis promoters, and I took interest in it and kind of jumped in that lane. But I say that to say that through my time in St. Louis, I've had a lot of opportunity to network with people and meet people from all different walks of life through my events. And that's kind of like what got me started in just being on the social scene. And it really was like the building blocks for where I am now with Levels. I don't want to tell the whole story all at once, so I'll leave room for questions.
No, for
but
sure.
That's the building blocks of what Levels is now, and all of the different character traits that I bring to the table. It's all from my experience and things that I've learned.
For sure. And well, first, St. Louis is definitely glad to have you still here, continuing that work in a multitude of different ways. And so I guess one of the things that you were saying is, you were talking about that transition from Nigeria to St. Louis. What were some of the key differences that you saw just culturally, community, especially even talking about the different communities as well too, because obviously different communities have different priorities, different interactions as well too. So if you could talk a little bit more about what was that transition like, and maybe some even the key things that you learned that you're still really think about today when you're doing some of the work now.
Yeah, like you said, you touched on it perfectly. Priorities were very different. I had a close knit of friends at Hazelwood East that were interested in, furthering our education as regards to college and stuff like that. I felt like the emphasis wasn't where I thought it would be as regards to that. But I was in a lot of AP courses, so all of my buddies were kind of on the same path. We wanted to, go do all these things. I think that culture, I never forget, I tell folks this story sometimes. When I went to my first football game and I heard the band playing, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. Like, and the band is playing and the football player and everything was just like going, and I just really enjoyed the atmosphere with how that was rolled out. So really good time, but some of the differences was like, it was a lot of fighting. That's the one thing with Hazelwoodies at the time. This place called Student Street, and it was a fight every day. And that was really tough for me because I didn't understand it. And I was like, it's 7:30 in the morning. Like, what is there to fight about this early?
Side note, have you seen that one video on Instagram where it's like they're acting like it's like you're walking into school? They said it's 7:30 in the morning. Like, there's literally a video that talks
really?
about like, why are y'all fighting this
Right,
early
like,
in the morning? Like,
it was a shocker for me. I still was able to find my own community. I met really, really cool folks that understood where I was coming from and pulled me in. I think that was important for my journey, though, because I understood that there's a different side to the world, or there's a different side to, everything is not rosy, right? So that was a eye opener for me. It also taught me when it came to further down the line, when I started doing promotions and stuff like that, it taught me how to interact with different kinds of folks. Like, everybody is not from the same background. And sometimes, you, instead of just meeting people and just talking to them in a way where you like, this is what you should understand, you're able to say, okay, let me understand what is actually going on, where you from, what's your background like. It helps you relate to people a lot better. Definitely helps me out in the restaurant industry. But those are things that, it was definitely a culture shock coming to the U.S. and then going to St. Louis and then going to Hazelwoodies. I had some rough days where I felt out of place, didn't think that I wanted to stay at the school, but my life was just a little different at the time. I was living with my dad, and he was working a lot, so I had to work through a lot of those emotions on my own. But anyway, I don't know if I went off the rails with that, but yeah, that's a little bit about my upbringing when it comes to the early times in high school.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, especially as you touched on kind of doing the work of party promotion, having some of that international perspective, and then having the interactions at Hazelwoodies High School, and then also at the two universities, SLU and UMSL, all play probably a very key role into you understanding how to, like you just were saying, how do you interact with folks? How do you understand where they're coming from? What are their interests? What are their priorities?
Exactly.
To be able to make sure, especially within, I would imagine within party promotion, it's not just the making sure the word gets out there, but also making sure folks are having a good time in the space on the day or the weekend or however long the event's going on.
Exactly. That's super important. One thing that was really unique about my events at the time was with like people who do bottle service and VIP sections, and I made sure that I went to every table to check on them, and sometimes I would even bring the bottle out or help the servers bring the bottles out. And I think that people were drawn to that because they weren't small parties. After a while, they grew to where it was like 500-600 people in one space. They would say, oh, all of these people here, and the person that's putting it together or, is here to check on me and make sure that my experience is good. I learned that just from how I wanted to be perceived, like how I wanted to be treated when I went to an event or anything like that. I want to feel special. And also, if you're spending this money and you're out and you're having a good time, of course, you want to feel that way. So that's one nugget that I picked up along the way. But one thing with party promotions, though, is like I intentionally wanted to tell that part of my career because it's not highlighted much, even so much so where at one point I had to hide it. And we can talk about that a little bit more. I felt shamed for being a party promoter when I was trying to open up Levels, because I felt like it was being perceived that when I opened up Levels, it would be a club.
Right.
But I intentionally was opening up a restaurant, and I was like, I know I can do this. And that part of my history was actually looked at as, oh, well, we already know what this is going to turn into. And that was tough for me. So it's like when you presented this opportunity, we talked earlier, I was like, I want to talk about that because I feel like there's a way to do it right. And we know a lot of entrepreneurs that have been able to use party promotions or event planning as a building block or as an internship of sorts to learn how to market, learn how to be very good with networking,
Right.
learn how to host people, hospitality in general. Like, it gives you a lot of ingredients to do a lot of bigger and better things. And some people even stayed in that lane and took it all the way to the top, to where they're hosting festivals and they're hosting, much larger events that are $1 million, revenue streams,
Right.
So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and I didn't want to put that in the shadows that is part of who I am.
Right.
That is part of how I got to where I am today. So I really wanted to, touch on that.
And I appreciate you sharing that too, because I think, at times when you get known for one thing, folks want to perceive the next thing that you do as the same thing.
Right.
And so to be able to understand that, that all these moments that you're talking about is merely a stepping stone. Like you said, the promotion part was to help you build your understanding of networks, even a sense of community, but also to what I heard you saying of like, I think it's really important sometimes for folks that are, managing large things or running things to not get so far away from what's actually happening.
Right.
Because there's a part of us, especially like, let me say a part of us, I'll speak for myself. I know for myself, a lot of the times, I get so caught up sometimes in the planning, the strategizing, the vision of what needs to be done. But then sometimes there might be that disconnect from how it actually gets done.
Right.
And so to be able to hear you say that, like, it's important to you to be able to know what's happening, not only from a strategy and vision point, but also the direct experience that somebody is having as well, too, speaks to the level of, like you said earlier, I want to make sure that folks are having a authentic experience.
Yes.
And also and it's also to the same level of, is this experience treating folks the way that I would want to be treated within the space as well too.
Exactly.
So I think that is like, important, especially that from the standpoint too of, like you said, Levels obviously is great. The new venture, that's what you're doing right now, but also understanding that there were a lot of steps that had to happen before you could even get to the grand opening and even and continue to be open right now, because the restaurant game's not easy.
It is not. I've talked to a couple of my restaurant buddies, and going in, they were like, "Oh no, I mean, this is the hardest money you're ever gonna make. Like, it's not gonna be roses." And I thank God that I really enjoy what I do. Like, I wake up in the morning and I have to go get inventory together. So I'm still in the stage where, I'm still doing a lot of different tasks.
Sure. Yeah, you're on the ground level still.
Right. And one thing with me is I want things to go so well. So I'm kind of in that phase where I want to do it myself, because I don't, I delegated to somebody else, they're going to mess it up. And that's my mindset right now. So I'm still doing my own inventory. I'm still going to the kitchen and I'm looking at what's going on. And when food is going out, I'm looking at the plate and making sure it looks great. Really enjoy doing that. But when it comes to like the ease or how much work I'm putting in, it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work. But like I said, I really enjoy what I do, so it's not a problem at all. I'm looking for people that are as passionate about what we're trying to bring. And what we're really trying to bring is an experience, an authentic Nigerian experience, where you're having the food, yes, but I want to connect you with the culture. That's why we added the art piece. And 95% of the music you're going to hear at Levels is going to be Nigerian music or African music, because we want to when you're walking into the building, it says experience levels. We want to create an experience to where you're engulfed in that culture. So everything that we present, we want to make sure that we keep that in mind. We want folks to say, oh, I feel like I just had a taste of Nigeria, all in all. Like culture, music, art, food, short of trying to teach my my servers to greet people in native tongue or Yoruba or Igbo or something like that. I really want to make sure that they're getting that experience as wholesome as we can present it. That's Levels in a nutshell, and that's what we really want to bring to folks. So our slogan, we use it here and there, but it says food brings us together. And I think that in the story of how Levels was created and some of the battles that we had to fight, like food is like the connecting piece, and that's what we wanted Levels to stand for. So.
Ooh, I can't wait to get into more of Levels. But before we do that,
okay.
I'm curious on, because a lot of what you're talking about, also at the same time, because we touched on it some too, is hosting. And across these multiple different things that you're talking about, hosting is a big part of the experience,
yes,
but also of the culture as well,
right,
too.
Yeah.
Especially I know that within a lot of African American households, but also when I've gone and experienced African culture at my friend's house as well, too. Hosting is important, and so I guess is that something that is that something that you just watched over time on, just like, here's how these things need to be hosted, here's how we create this space? Like, at what point, I guess, here's maybe more of the question. At what point did you know that you had the gift for hosting? Because I think that is a big part of what you're talking about, this experience, is how to really bring people and cultivate an experience that you won't have in other places.
Yeah. I think hosting part of it came from my upbringing. So in Nigeria, lived with, so my mom and dad are together, right? But we had this very unique household where they went to school in the U.S., but then they moved back to Nigeria. My mom was working in Nigeria. My dad moved back here because he wanted, the opportunities in Nigeria weren't where they needed to be for him. So he moved here. So he was working here, and my mom was working in Nigeria. I'm significantly younger than a lot of my last of five. So I'm significantly younger than my older brother, 5 years. So, you can imagine, I'm in kindergarten, he's already on the next, just,
right.
So I spent a lot of time at home by myself, or not by myself, but not with my family. Everybody kind of came home a little later.
The intermediate family.
So that happened as a young kid. And this story I'm telling is something where I had to sit down and think, like, where does this come from, right?
Right.
So as a young kid, mom is working a lot. Probably I'm with a maid or a caretaker of some sort, and I'm growing up that way. I moved to the U.S. My dad is working a lot, so now I'm going to high school. I'm coming home, see him in the morning, I see him at night. Just me being alone. When I got to college, it was like, okay, I can build my own community now. I can be around people, and I think that it was more so like a need. I wanted to be around people. So what's the best way to be around people rather than just fitting in? I said, okay, I'm gonna host you guys. So I was the guy where you can come to my house, 3-4 buddies, and I'll be cooking in the kitchen.
So you are the chef.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. But I had many a times where people would come over my house and I would be cooking, and I'll be cooking Nigerian food, and it'd be super spicy, but they love it, they're eating it. I'm honing my skills in cooking at the time. So that was how I built a lot of like my community. People would come over, would hang out, would go out afterwards. And then I saw a lane with being able to do the same thing but having an event, right? So now I'm hosting people, and I'm making sure that everybody's having a great time at the event. I'm the guy. I'm walking around. Hey, everything good? Do you have everything you need? So I think, to answer your question, hosting came from kind of like a need. I did not want to be by myself. I wanted to be around people. I wanted to build my own community in the sense of being able to like host and make all of these friends. When did I find out that I was good at it? I think that when I was doing the events, I just have a natural knack for people, meeting people, and I got a lot of great reviews from people just saying, I had an excellent time at your event. You made sure that we were all right. I'm the guy, so it's paid entry, so people pay at the front. But I would always create like a list where all of my buddies and my friends can get in. In turn, they were helping me spread the word. So that was also a thing. I'd come outside, hey, are you okay? You can come in, you're good. And the folks that worked the front of my parties were particularly angry with me because I would let a whole bunch of people in. Like,
Right.
It's kind of like
they trying to be secure.
Right.
You see 10,000, you're like, come on in.
Exactly.
Right. And they like, we already at capacity.
They're
Come
like,
on in.
like, come on in. So sometimes I guess the hosting thing, I take it a little overboard in trying to, just
Yeah.
just be friendly and meet people and make sure everybody's having a great time. Sometimes at my expense, right? But that was when I think at that particular period in my life, I knew I was like, oh no, you're really good with people. It was very hard to tell my parents exactly what I was doing because, at the time, I was actually studying for the MCAT. During UMSL time, when I first graduated, I was studying for the MCAT, trying to go to med school because the Nigerian thing, right? If you're not a doctor, a lawyer,
I have friends.
you're an engineer, and that's
right.
that,
What are you doing?
And if you're not doing anything, if you're doing anything else, you're a failure. I think that narrative is changing now with the new age of Nigerian parents and just understanding that there are other ways to make it. Our culture just
It doesn't
says
have to look the same.
Those are the ways that you can make it. I think that that's changing a little bit, but. So at the time, that's how the hosting came about. It came from a need. It came from something that, I felt like, okay, I wanted to be around people, and this is how I made it happen. So that's the story behind that.
So even though with hosting it came from a need, hosting also requires a level and a humbleness to be able to serve.
Yes.
What's that balance that you find between the two? Because there's the hosting part where I'm sure like, oh yeah, I put on this great event, feels good, the pat on the back to get to hear the reviews, but also it comes with, and I can imagine too with the work that you're doing at Levels as well too, a willingness to be able to serve others. And that's for everybody, not everybody can do that. So when have you found those moments where you found the same level of joy and excitement of hosting as you had for the level of service that comes with it?
I think that comes from the work that I'm able to do with other organizations, because, again, back to this party promoting thing, it's like you can say that you're just hosting an event and you just throw parties and that's all that you do, but I think that lane can evolve to where you're actually serving people and actually helping the community in different ways. You can put on galas or community service outreach events and stuff like that. So I think that when I started working with Action St. Louis, we helped put together a brunch that they had. I think it started in 2016 called Woke Voters Brunch. And it was a brunch where it was an event in a sense where, young folks were being educated about their right to vote. Teaching them, who was on the ballot, what they stood for. We had some politicians come in to talk about their platforms and things of that nature. That was the one defining moment when it comes to like service that really, really made sense. I said, oh no, you're really doing something good to where you're not just throwing an event.
It's not self-serving.
Yeah, now it's not self-serving. It's it's going a different direction where you're actually reaching out to the community and helping folks understand something that's very, very important. I think in the last few years or the last decade, I think that young people voting just became like a thing. Like young people got interested in saying, okay, what's really going on and how can I help change things? So I think that was a defining moment for me where I was like, okay, this is not just about you, not about you just making a ton of money. This is more so like you're benefiting others in the endeavors that you're involved in. So that's a moment for me. I don't know if I answered that one well.
No, you did.
You know,
You answered it the way it needed to be.
yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think, and that's kind of what I was curious on. It was in that sense because, like to your point, you know, a lot of the other work is, you know, it's still good work, but it was personal gain to it. Not to say that the community service work doesn't have a level of personal attached to it, but there's a larger community scope as well too.
Exactly.
And so that's really cool to be able to hear how you're utilizing these skills that you're developing and then finding different ways of being able to plug them in.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when we're thinking about even like the larger conversation of St. Louis, you know, there's always that, you know, that simple say, you know, it's your time, it's your treasures, it's your talents. And how you give is what you're going to get back, especially when we're talking about where St. Louis is going. Absolutely. And so to be able to hear that you're connected to different organizations and utilizing that amazing skill set to further and empower other nonprofits and other communities is awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. Really have to give credit to Kayla Reed. She tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I think you can do this. In my mind, I didn't think I could. I was like, oh, I just do events. Like, what are you asking me to do here? But she explained it, and she was like, just use your network. You know how to structure these events, and you know how it's supposed to go. You're great at making sure people are comfortable and having a great time. I think that you'd be good at this. You'd be good for this. And she presented it to her board, and they said yes. So that's also very important, is having people in your corner that are able to encourage and help you evolve your talents. Because your talents are, sometimes you don't even know what you're capable of doing, but you need somebody that's able to tell you, hey, I see all of these character traits you have. I think this would be good for this. Right. Sometimes you need that little bit of a push to jump into a space where, hey, look, you know, you're doing things, you're doing exploits that you didn't think you'd be able to accomplish.
Yeah, because a part of it is like, you know, when you're working on your own craft and things like that, there's a level of tunnel vision that can come to that sometimes. Absolutely. And you need folks that can kind of say, hey, you know, let's see about adding this to, you know, to the toolkit. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's really impactful that, you know, you have folks around you that don't not only see you for the skill sets that you have, but see you for the person that you are, and being able to say, okay, these two things can come together to be able to really have some good in the community on a much larger scale.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. So shout out to Kayla.
Yes.
Hey, shout out to Kayla.
You know.
Oh, I don't. I'm just shouting her out because she gave you the nudge in the right direction. And so, you know, all those things, you know, you're cultivating all those skills. And so, you know, and that brings you to, I guess, even the idea of Levels. What was that like? When did you sit there and say, all right, it's time for a shift? Yeah. And how did you, like, what was, you don't have to go through the whole process, but like, what was that process of being able to say, okay, I'm going to step away from the things that I'm comfortable with to step into a place now to where where you think that, well, and now that you do have a level of passion for?
So part of the story is with the, you know, starting off in 2011, 2012, I graduated from UMSL, pre-med biology, and I'm studying for the MCAT. And I knew I was passionate about events, but I didn't really know exactly where that could go or what I could do with it. So the first step that I took was I called my parents and I told them that I did not want to go to med school. That was a bombshell. They were both in Nigeria at the time, and they were like, oh, he's lost his way. He needs to come back to Nigeria. So that was one of my trips to Nigeria. I went back to explain myself and to tell them.
You had a lot of time to figure out what you were going to say.
To explain myself and tell them, you know, why I was taking the direction I was taking. But at the time, I after discussing with them, looking at landscape, just thinking about things that were going on in Nigeria, I decided on engineering. So I went back to school to get it. So I came back to the U.S. and I went to school at Rolla. So it took me 2.5 years to get that going. And the whole time, so this hosting events thing is still in the background. And for me, it just felt like, oh no, what you're supposed to be doing is people-based. It's very centric on making sure that people are having a great time. And the whole time, I'm also still hosting people at home. People are coming over. I'm cooking for them. And I think that everything just aligned when we found this space on Washington. And it used to be a restaurant. And I had an event there even many years ago. So you
didn't even know it at the time.
it all came together. So when we saw the space, I also looked around and said, there's no Nigerian restaurants here. I actually, me and my wife at the time when we were just dating, I used to tell her I was going to open up a restaurant, and it was going to be called Side of Veggies. That was my nickname in high school and a little bit of college. So my full name is Ono Veggie. So folks couldn't pronounce it really well, so they would call me Side of Veggies.
That's some St. Louis stuff right there. Give you a nickname that sound like that's close enough.
All right, but so we were gonna call it Side of Veggies. It would be like, you have all your entrees and it always comes with a side of veggies. So that was the initial thought process, very, very early in the proofing stage. But when we saw the space, I think the building meant a lot to us. That's where we met. I know, crazy, right? This all sounds very
right. It's so romantic. It's like I had a vision. I met my future partner at this space. It all just came together.
So, but that, so that was very important. Was this actual space, and then we looked at where it was located, being on Washington Avenue. We knew that Washington Avenue has had its, ups and downs. And at the time, I feel like it was on a down, but it's on its way up now. And we knew that what we would contribute to the area would be very important, not just for, amplifying African culture, but also bringing another tourist attraction or an attraction to an area that otherwise wouldn't have that, right? So we thought that this is a perfect opportunity. So we aggressively went after the space and said, you know what, we definitely want it. We want to make this happen. The idea with Levels also comes partly from the space because the building has several different levels. It has 4 floors. Right now we're utilizing only 2, and we have 2 other floors to develop. A lot of people don't know that.
Whoa. Hold on, you got 4 you got 4 floors?
Yeah. So there's a lot of stairways in that building. The bathrooms are downstairs, so you have to go down some stairs to go there. And then you got to go, so the main dining area is on technically the 2nd floor. And then we have a mezzanine art gallery on technically the 3rd floor.
Oh, y'all doing it out there.
All right. And it's stairways to get to all of it. So if you look at our logo, the E's are in the shape of stairs. So that's like a nod to Levels. Levels is also like a slang used in Nigeria, very similar to how it's used here. Like, there's levels to this, something like that. So we use that similarly in Nigeria. So that's how the name came about. And we knew that, okay, we have something here, and this is going to be a space that, like I said earlier, amplifies, the culture and gives an attraction for people to fellowship over food. So that's where we started. That's how everything came together. And then us having to talk to the community and meet with folks that are stakeholders in the area really gave us more energy to like, okay, we really, really got to do this. Because we had some pushback. It was like, no, like, we don't want that here. I was like, how do you know? I mean, like, how can you don't know what I'm presenting. You're not really giving me a shot to, to figure it out. And then, the mindset changed. I don't want to sit here and talk bad about people. The mindset changed. I think that people started warming up to the idea. Oh, maybe this does sound like a great idea. And then after that, the community support was through the roof.
That's awesome.
Everyone was, hey, what do you need? What do you need? Who do you need to talk to? We'll connect you with them. We want this to happen. So we got a lot of community support after we were able to kind of like really explain what we were bringing. And they saw, it was like, okay, this is going to be good. And so far, man, Levels has been amazing to us, and I think that it's been amazing for Washington Avenue in general. So very excited.
Man, that's an awesome story to be able to hear that. Oh, you used to host parties there. You met your partner. Like all these things, like were building up to this moment, and you didn't even realize it then.
Right.
Nor were you weren't even supposed to. But it's like just to see how all these things culminated together to now with you being able to do the work around. Like, because I think, like you said, to an extent, like it's bigger than just a restaurant. You're adding something to the culture. You're adding something to the space. You're adding something that is attracting folks. And you're also changing, to what you just said too, you're changing the narrative around Wash Ave as well too. As this sense of like, now, of course, it still has this, it still has its parts. There's things that still need to be worked out. But unless we start beginning to continue to enhance the space, it will never change.
And you need folks to take risks like what we did, because to be honest with you, it was 50-50. Like people were like, you're crazy, and other people were like, that's a great idea. So we went all in and took a huge risk in the space, but it's paying off in the sense that people are coming to Wash Ave to hang out. That wasn't happening as much as it should be. I think that that's such a great strip in general.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
and it has all the fixings of being a tourist attraction. Right up there with all the big names. Right.
I mean, Washington Ave is historic. I mean, it used to be an old-fashioned district. I mean, it has all the different parts right there. People host conferences down there on Wash Ave. You have all the different, the bars, everything, all in one place. So why not you all?
Right. So I'm glad to be, part of this and part of the revitalization, so to speak, of that area.
For sure. And then, so you talked about, your engineering background. I'm curious on like this world of engineering and now like cooking and hosting and things like that, but more so from a restaurant perspective. Like, do you see anything that you've learned from engineering that you're like, oh, that was helpful a little bit into what I'm doing right now?
I don't think directly. I think that as a discipline, engineers can do just about anything. Like even with your study, like what you study in school, the physics, chemistry, all of the things that you're learning at the time, it helps you solve problems. That's what engineers do, right? I think an engineer can be an excellent doctor. And I think an engineer can be an excellent chef or a restaurateur, or even going to, you host vacations or whatever, like, a travel agent. One thing about engineers is that we solve problems.
Right.
And one thing with the restaurant industry is that every day you have a different problem. And one thing also that I take from engineering is that you when you see a problem, you don't think, oh, I'm defeated, oh, I don't know what to do. Like you're instantly go into your mind starts rolling on how do I solve this thing. I think that a lot of the calculus that you take, I took this class called differential equations. All of these things, like it not only gives you structure, but it also like helps you unravel different kinds of puzzles, or, so to speak, right? So I think that engineering was excellent for giving me that structure and giving me that problem-solving capabilities to where nothing seemed too difficult. I really want to remember this class. I'll get back to you on that. But it's based on physics and calculus, and the one problem, my final exam was two problems. And after you were done solving everything, it took 4 pages to be done with, right? Yeah, like, and that's ridiculous, right?
Ugh.
So
Shout out to all the good engineers out there, because that ain't me.
but what that says is, for me, the reason why I brought that up is that you don't get defeated by problems. Like, you see something that's colossal and very, very difficult, and you're automatically thinking, how do we break this down into small bits, and how do we solve it? So that's what engineering did for me. I also think that emotionally, engineering, Rolla specifically, Missouri University of Science and Technology specifically, gave me the solitude that I needed at the time, because I was getting kind of whisked away in the world of events and parties. Like, I was partying a lot, and going to engineering school dialed me back. So, they say that all of the greatest athletes and even musicians do this. Like, before they do a big show, before they, the season starts, they go away to camp. They go away to this place that nobody's at, and they train and they work and they master their craft, and then they come into the season and they play, right? I think that engineering was my camp. It was the time for me to really hone in on who are you, what are you trying to do. Rolla is the kind of place where it's like the only thing to do in Rolla is study and go to school.
Because there ain't much left.
That's it. So that solitude helped me out quite a bit. Aside from, coming back to St. Louis on weekends and getting my fix and hanging out a little bit, but I'm back all week at Rolla, and I did that for 3 years. I think that was excellent for my growth as a person. So that's another thing that engineering, so to speak, did for me, was it just helped me really hone in on who I am and what I'm trying to do. I still knew that events or anything in that world was something that I wanted to do. I think that really helped my growth as a person. So, coming back, because, I talked about the need to host people and do all of that. It turns from, okay, you're just hosting people, to, oh no, can you be by yourself? Do you know how to do that? Yes, you're hosting people, and it's great. It sounds great. But you need to be able to be by yourself sometimes.
Who are you when you're alone?
Exactly. Rolla helped me find out, because in Rolla, you're alone a lot. Like, you just go to school. I didn't know all the people. All the people I knew were in St. Louis. So short of friends coming to visit here and there, like, I was making new friends there, but still, it was a lot of solitude. It was like, okay, this is business. You go in here. Another quote from Kayla before I decided to go to Rolla. She used to tell me, turn down for your future. And that was my turn down moment, where I had to relax, take a beat, take some solitude, and learn who you are and what you're really about to do. So that's one thing that time period, studying engineering, all of that, that's what that did for me.
Hey, all this stuff prepared you for the moment.
Yes.
Now to have Levels, to have the restaurant, more than just a restaurant, I should say, to have the 4 floors of the building, you got the art gallery on the mezzanine and things like that. So what's the next level, man? What are you looking at? You got 2 more floors to fill.
Yeah,
what you doing with them?
We're working on it. It's like, I was talking to Michelle earlier. I don't know if I can bring up Michelle, but I was talking to her.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Michelle.
Shout out to Michelle about how everything is aligning and how
That's
things
awesome.
are falling in place. And it truly makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. Because as an engineer, I had great jobs, excellent jobs. I worked for huge companies, companies that taught me a lot about, how to run a company and just things that when I was at work, I was never just an employee. I was looking at the structure of how things are ran. And I was like, one day I want to run something that has this kind of structure where, employees are being taken care of. And you can tell that upper management cares about what people are going through, right? But, so even my work, my 9-to-5 work was preparing me for this. And then after, I decided to quit and I say, okay, let's focus on Levels. Everything that has just been falling in place from, getting called into meetings with the mayor, and she knows exactly what I'm trying to do. Like that's amazing. To having people that are pushing me in the direction of, okay, these are non-for-profit organizations that want to have events and they're looking for a space, and then they see Levels and they're like, oh, this is excellent. So we're getting all of these things happening to even being here. So for me, like, I enjoy art. I'm in no way a producer of art. Like, I can't paint or anything like that, but I enjoy art. And I was talking to Michelle earlier, and we're talking about the art pieces downstairs. And then I mentioned that I have a gallery upstairs, and she's like, oh my God, like, like, there's a gallery upstairs? I was like, yes, there's a gallery at Levels. So everything, and then being here with you, having this conversation, I just feel like everything is literally falling in place and just reassuring me that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's awesome.
And with all of the career changes, I don't know if you've been keeping count, but we start off pre-med. We're trying to go to med school, right? And then we go to Nigeria and we study, and then we decide on petroleum engineering, and I come back and I study engineering. That didn't work out. Funny story how that didn't work out.
Did you have to go back to Nigeria again?
I did, actually.
Too long trips.
I did, because after I graduated with engineering, I went back to Nigeria, and I was going to help my parents run their business. And I helped with the construction. So she was working on a gas station at the time. So I helped with the construction of that, used some of my skills from school. But eventually, it just didn't make sense. I think that I was needed more here in the U.S., so I came back to the U.S. So I'm working in engineering for a while, and then we get out of that, and then now we're here. But everything, with that, what I was getting at is, with that level of uncertainty and jumping from one thing to another, it started to weigh on me, like, Ono, what do you want to do? What are you actually, trying to accomplish here? And I think Levels was the answer. Like, it was like, okay, this is it. So when everything starts falling in place the way it is, it's so reassuring to someone that at some point was confused. You're like, okay, I found my thing. I found what I really, really want to do. And I can even branch out and do other things from this space. So now I'm hosting engineers. Engineers are coming to eat at Level, type of a thing.
Right.
And I can have those conversations.
Right.
And I'm able to, I might not know all of the lingo anymore, but I have that background.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many doctors have come to Levels. Because, also with what I said with the culture thing where, doctor, lawyer, engineer, this is the path that's paved for us. As I don't know about other African countries, but Nigeria is like very centric on that. So doctors are coming in, and I can have the conversation to an extent. And that helps out. So everything, like, my experience really, for me, has been pointing in this direction the whole time. And all of the building blocks help me to get on the floor when I'm at the restaurant. And I'm very confident I'm able to talk to anyone. And either I'm sharing my story or I'm listening to theirs, and we have common ground. And with that, I'm sharing Nigerian culture, I'm sharing Nigerian food. It just all makes sense. So I'm very, very happy where I am right now. And third and fourth floor, I don't know. But one thing I wanted to mention with things falling in place, one of my fraternity brothers introduced me to this cohort where there are real estate developers. Some are just starting out, some are well advanced, and they have these experts that have either been in construction for a long time, they do design, different kinds of things. So this cohort comes together and they pick a project every year, and they say, okay, as a cohort, we're all gonna work on the highest and best use for this space,
Right.
whatever the space may be. Some have used like big apartment buildings, but I say that to say that Levels is the case study this year. So I'm in the cohort. I'm in the cohort learning as a baby real estate investor, and we're also brainstorming on the highest and best use for the third and fourth floor for Levels. So,
That's exciting.
you know,
It's so exciting. One, not just because of the success that you're having, but the level of fulfillment that you're finding.
Yeah.
Like there's not people every day that can say that they enjoy what they're doing, but also can look back and smile about the journey that it took to get there. And I think what I appreciate you sharing the ins and outs of how you got here is that although it took a lot of different paths, couple trips home,
Right.
it's your story though.
Yeah.
And it's authentic to you. And I think sometimes folks need to hear that because sometimes I guess, people think that things just happen,
Right.
and it didn't but this is a long journey that essentially to what you're saying, this started when you were in high school. You didn't know it at the time, but all these things prepared you for the moment that you're in now. And so now it's like, you've locked into it, you did your training camp,
Right.
and it's showtime now.
Yeah, it's showtime.
And so it's really exciting to hear all the different ways that you've navigated, not just culturally, but also your personal, journey as well too, to be able to share an experience like this with St. Louis. And so that's super awesome that we're able to partake, support, and celebrate the work that has been just maturing over a long period of time.
And St. Louis has really been good to me. I've learned a lot from the city in general. I think that just from my start with Hazelwood East, all of these different pockets of people that I've met over time are coming back to support and say, "Oh, well, was this a little Ono, the African kid from high school? Yeah, we're
Right.
gonna go to this
Right.
restaurant."
Who used to call side of veggie. Now
Right.
look at him doing his thing.
So I think that with a lot of community support from folks I've met in college and all of that, I think it also helps that I stayed here. So all of my background in school has been in this area. So I know a lot of people in the area because this is where I grew up. So I think that's very helpful as well. I just wanted to add that.
No, for sure, man. Hey, the way I said it, I think I said it in episode 0, everything that I have and am is because of the people in this place, born and raised here. And so it's just being able to acknowledge and understand that all the people that were in position, and that's a blessing to me to be able to say that, to be able to look back and reflect on all the people that were in position to elevate me to the next place. Absolutely. Or to push me in the right direction, or to correct the things that I needed to be corrected at the time. And so, I feel the same way. St. Louis has given a lot, and so now to a certain degree it's I have to give it back. Absolutely. And so now here we are doing the work.
Doing the work, figuring it out.
Man, that's awesome, Ono. So as we're wrapping up, I got a couple more things for you, but I can't let you go without asking, who's the chef, man? Who's the chef? I need to know. Is it you? Is it your partner? Who's back there making it happen? And what's your favorite dish right now?
Okay, so the chef is Rukaya Adeyemo, Nigerian, born and raised. I met her. I know I keep coming back to this event planning thing, but it really was.
It's a great connector.
Yeah, it's a great connector. So I had an event, and she was catering for the event, and the rest was history. So I met her then, and she catered a couple more events for me. And what I really enjoy about our relationship, Rukaya and I, is that when we first bought the building, it was messed up. It was not what it looks like now. But I called her and I said, I want to show you something. And I took her to the building, and we sat on the second floor on the mezzanine. And I said, this is going to be a Nigerian restaurant, and I want you to be the head chef here. And I'm very, very happy. We have our ups and downs. It's really, really tough in the kitchen running a restaurant because tempers get high. Rukaya is an excellent cook, but emotions get high, and she's one of those kind of women that she's like, I want to let you know exactly, how I'm feeling, which is great because I want to foster a relationship where you're able to express yourself and let us know exactly where your pain points are. But we're sitting on the mezzanine, and I show her the space, and it looks rough, and she believes in what we're doing from the onset. It wasn't, it wasn't too much convincing.
Right.
She was like, "This makes sense. Let's do it." At the time, I don't remember where she was working, but just the fact that she bought in, and as we were doing construction, I was letting her know. I didn't tell her she was gonna have a team. She didn't have nothing. It was just her. That was the first person I talked to. Another one of my really good buddies, Victor, bought into the vision very early, and helped me with just being a support system with, "Hey, Ono, get up, you could do this," and actually coming to the restaurant and helping just with whatever we needed. So he's part of, the beginning story. But with Rukaya, she just believed in it, she bought into it, and as time progressed and we're getting closer to launch, we start cooking. So one thing I saw with Levels was that we have a kitchen, the kitchen is functioning, but do we know how to serve food out of this kitchen? Do we even know how to cook in this kitchen? So a friend of mine joked with me right before opening. He was like, "Man, how many soft openings are you gonna have?" I had a lot of soft openings, so to speak, right? I would just invite friends over, very similar to back in the day when I was cooking at home. I would just invite friends over. Ruka would cook. Short form is Ruka. That's what everybody calls Chef Ruka. Ruka would cook, and folks would just eat, and we were just trying things out. We would put in all the potential things we wanted to have on the menu. We'd cook. We'd invite people over. They'd eat. We'd just do it, rinse and repeat. And we did that quite a bit. Two things was I wanted to test out the menu items. Second thing was I wanted her to get comfortable in the kitchen, comfortable with that kitchen. And I think that was a great template to use when we started doing actual soft openings, having people come in and food is plated and all of that. She was getting comfortable. Here's the crazy thing. Our first month, all of that, first month of actually opening, after the grand opening, all of that went out the window. Because it was
different ball game.
It's you're serving food for people to just eat for free, and they can't really complain or say anything. First month was tough. We have long wait times. We're figuring out everything, all the nuances. I figured out that we didn't have a big enough team back there. So Ruka is "Yeah, I believe in you, Ono, but this is a lot of work. I can't do all of this stuff with one other person."
Right, because you're the party promoter, so you done hyped it up. You done told everybody to come through,
and people came.
You did your job,
right? But one thing though, with my role in the kitchen, even though Ruka, cooks and she's the head chef, I also support with my experience with Nigerian cuisine. Just being a lover of it, and I know how to cook as well. I think I have a good idea of what it's supposed to taste like. So one thing with Nigerian food too is there's so many different variations to how things could come out and how things could taste. Especially with jollof rice and there's some
the battle.
you know about that, right?
Right.
So if you don't know, we're talking about Ghana jollof, Nigerian jollof, and Cameroonian jollof. There's all different variations of it. I feel like I knew what I think the Nigerian standard should be, so we had to work on iterations and making sure that was coming out the way it was supposed to come out. And with a lot of our different food items too. So that work with Ruka and I has been a back and forth. We're figuring out the food. I'm tasting food every day. Some days, you go back there and you don't feel like the kitchen is moving at the speed that you want it to be moving in. And I'm, oh, we got to figure this out. So just not the party promotion, event, marketing side, running an efficient kitchen is a whole another beast. And because Ruka and I essentially were learning together, because she comes from the catering world, the pace there is different. You're not cooking for somebody that wants to eat right now. You've already prepared the food and you go deliver it. That's a different world. So with that, just having that back and forth with figuring out how to be efficient, how to put out great food and make sure that it's tasting the same way. Consistency, being consistent every time, that's difficult. And we're in month 4, I think, yeah. So November 1st will make us 4 months in, and with the, just traffic that's coming in there, we're having to learn very, very quickly how to get things done. Big kudos to Ruka for learning with me and just being, teachable too. Because sometimes you have people that are just like, no, I don't want to do it that way. This is how it should go. And then now you have issues, right? But she's like, okay, Ono, I feel like I understand what you're trying to do, so you let me know and let me figure out how to produce that.
And that's also that level of elevation too, having folks that can buy into a vision without even knowing what it is. Like that person was positioned to help elevate you to the next space. And that for you all to be able to work off of each other, building in relationship and knowledge about how this is. One of the things that came to mind for folks that may have not had Nigerian food before, if you had 3 words to describe Nigerian food, what would it be?
I would say savory, spicy, and I don't know. Those are
Savory and spicy?
Yeah, those are the 2 things that I think about right off the bat. You did ask earlier what is my favorite dish, and it's the whole fish tilapia. It comes with, it's a grilled whole fish, comes with jollof rice, comes with plantains, and your choice of coleslaw or something we call eforiro. Eforiro is spinach. It has some tomato sauce in there. It's blanched in palm oil. Really, really,
and one it's very good.
Yeah, one of our favorite things.
It's very good.
But that is my favorite. I also like the ayamashi. Ayamashi is made with like green bell peppers. It's fried of sorts, and it has different kinds of meats in it, and it's served on a bed of white rice. That's also my go-to when I just want to have something.
I know what I'm ordering when I go to Levels.
Right. So those 2 things are my favorite. The grilled fish, I especially wanted to put that on the menu because one of my trips to Nigeria, I went to this open air bar, and they grilled this fish. It was so fantastic. The minute I came back to the U.S., I tried to recreate it. So me and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, but we're buying fish and messing it up and just trying to recreate that dish. And when I met Ruka, I was like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And we went through different ways of trying to get it done. But that meal has a story for me because, went to open air bar, really enjoyed that experience. And I was like, once Levels was a thing, I was like, I want to recreate that for folks. I want people to see this massive fish come out on a plate, and I almost want it to be overwhelming, like, oh my God, can I eat all of this? And people always take that home, but that's part of the experience. I wanted to recreate how I felt when I was in Nigeria. Literally, the fish came out, and that was the only thing we ate. It was like me and 3 other guys, and that was it.
1 fish for 3 guys.
It's
a lot of
huge,
fish.
The only difference that in Nigeria is catfish. In here, I wanted to, I chose tilapia, but it's still the same idea of what I wanted to present.
Hey now, you throw a piece of catfish on a plate, folks in St. Louis gonna eat it now.
Right.
I promise you.
And so as our menu develops, and our menu is not done yet, I think that there's still some staples we want to add. How we selected the menu was I just picked the most popular things that, Nigerians would recognize, and they're like, okay, I get it. This is popular. I get what they're doing. And then for folks that have never had Nigerian food before, it's kind of like, take it easy on them and just kind of ease them in, Right. I think some people have like issues with the goat. They're like, hey, you guys are eating goat meat? But I was like, it's a thing, and people love it. So that's how we created the menu, was to like kind of simplify. So our menu items are kind of simple, but eventually we want to add some more, I want to say like more complex dishes on there that, the Nigerian from like the village, they like, oh, you guys have that? Amazing. So
Right.
we want to add some items like that.
But that's exciting though to be able. It's the same way, it's this development of community. You can't bring people on the expert level. You got to start them
you
off
gotta bring 'em
beginner,
in, yeah.
start them slow, build it up,
Yeah.
build the relationship, and then introduce something new.
Yeah.
So definitely excited to see all the things that you are doing, not just around the restaurant, but how you find new and innovative ways to foster this community in St. Louis around Nigerian culture.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really exciting. I've been following the story up to date, and so
wow.
I can't wait to actually get down there myself,
Yeah.
try some things, and also be able to see the vision that you, your partner, your lead chef, and everybody else that you're going to be bringing onto the team in the future have, not only for the space but also for St. Louis as well too.
And one thing that goes to mention too is like all of the different cultures that are coming to experience Nigerian cuisine is baffling. So my brother is also Afure, was very influential with us getting this space, and he's a dentist, so he followed the path. He's a very successful dentist in Dallas, though. And on opening day, he came to grand opening, and we were in the kitchen together. But when we had a chance to come out and see all the different kinds of people that were there, we were like, oh, we really did something. Like, and he came back, I think, a couple weeks ago, and he was like, man, it's Indian people here, it's Asian people here, it's all kinds of people here.
Everybody.
Like, everybody is coming to get what Nigerian cuisine is about, and overall the reception has been great. So with that also makes me smile as regards to when it comes to like how St. Louis is receiving this. That's really important for us too, because we're having people, like, food brings us together. Like, we're
Right.
having people with different walks of life coming in to experience Nigerian food. A lot of the times, never tried it before.
Right.
Never tried it before. They ask us what to order on the menu. So, for folks that are being adventurous to that level, to where they're like, okay, we're gonna try this new cuisine, that's really important to us, and that really, that's another reassuring moment where we're like, we're really doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're doing the right thing.
Yeah, but I think to your point though, I think when you're passionate about the work you do, I truly feel like as a city, St. Louis responds. And so to be able to see that dialogue of the effort and the work that you and your team are putting forward, and to see the response, that sounds right. Like, it's not a, there's not a, I don't know what the word is right now, but the work that you're putting in should equate to the success that you're having, because you're genuine, you're authentic, you're building real relationships, you're building a sense of community, all within this one space. You're providing other people with opportunity. So you're layering all these different things together that is fostering this new, innovative way of creating space here for folks to have great times, but also to be able to come together around a culture and cuisine that they've never maybe have had or grown up around as well too. So all these things are happening, so don't be surprised, man.
Hey,
it's happening for a reason.
Amen.
Yes.
It definitely brings a smile to my face. That reassurance is really is really what I needed.
Yeah.
And when it comes back to personal and growth, I really was confused at the time. I was like, man, I can do engineering. I'm doing it. Like, I'm a decent engineer. I'd say that. But is this really what I want to do? And I was like, I get up and I go to work, and it's like, sometimes I talk to some friends and I'm like, dude, you complaining about a job at Boeing? Like, it's a great job,
Right.
but it's like, it wasn't what I wanted to really do. Like, I didn't get up excited. So having this happen, and I wake up, and my wife is like, yo, you gotta chill. Like, you don't have to go do this today, or you can relax for a minute. I'm like, no, this is what needs to be done.
Right.
Gotta go get it done.
But I can tell that you have a level of excitement around it, because the way you talked about that open air bar and that fish, and like the bed of rice with the with the beef on top. Yeah, I was like, yeah, this man's serious about the craft. So yeah, I mean, I think everything at least from what you're talking about and hearing the story, and also the level of passion that you bring to it. All these things are happening at the right time and for the right reasons. And so thank you, Ono, for being able to share that with us, because that's not being able to share one's culture and also thinking like it's just like an art form. Like, I want to put this out there and see how people respond. That's a risk. And so we appreciate you taking those risks and trying new things for St. Louis. I got the final questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Two-part question. Well, before I get to that, first, how can folks keep up with you and the work that you're doing at Levels?
So we post all of our things on all of our information on our Instagram at Levels Restaurant STL. We're not very hard to find. We also have a website, www.levels.stl.com. So we have our dinner menu, new events. We also have an opportunity, if you go on our Instagram page, for you to join our newsletter. We have an excellent marketing team of 2 people.
Still a team.
All right. That sends out a newsletter every week that just highlights what we have going on, if we have any special events, if we're running any specials for food. So you can join that newsletter and you can get that every week to kind of just keep up with what we have going on. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Awesome. And then the final question I have for you, it's a 2-part question. One, what do you love most about St. Louis? And the second part is, what do you most want to see change?
Excellent question. What I love about St. Louis the most is that it's 2 things. It's small enough, but it's big enough. So it's small enough where you can have like a tight-knit community group, but it's big enough to where you can actually make an impact. And that impact, it goes a long way. And is very different from other cities, to where it's like, I think about it like this. St. Louis is big enough to where you can wrap your arms around it, right? Yet small enough to where you can wrap your arms around it. Very important, because, in a bigger city, there's some things that you really can't, it's not that easy to get done, For example, with Levels, we're able to somehow, through our network and friends and all that, have the mayor be involved with helping us get to where we need to be, right? Small enough city to where we're able to do that, but big enough to where it's the mayor. That's important, right?
It's a big deal.
So that's one thing I've always loved about St. Louis, and I noticed that very early in my time here. Even not to, just throw things in, but even I had an event at the Contemporary Art Museum when I was 24 years old. It's like, that's a big deal. It's a museum.
International museum. Recognized.
And you have an event there. So with the network, it's small enough where it's like we were able to make that happen, but it's big enough, like, this is not a small,
This is not ordinary.
Yeah, it's not a small institution. So that's my favorite thing about St. Louis. And I've tried to leave and go to other cities, and I just don't get what I get here in St. Louis, and that's why I just fell in love with the place and I stayed here. What do I want St. Louis how do I want St. Louis to be better? What would I see more? I want St. Louis to get back to being a tourist destination where people really and truly say, hey, I'm going to St. Louis. And it's not like, huh? Where's that?
Right.
When I did my internship in Nigeria, it was so hard explaining where St. Louis was to people outside of the country. I mean, even in the country, it's difficult. But outside of the country, it was like, oh, you're in Louisiana? I was like, no, I'm in St. Louis.
That's a little farther down south.
Yeah, I'm St. Louis, Missouri. And then like, Missouri? What state is that? And it's like, this is outside of the country, though.
For
so,
sure.
There's a level of, ignorance a little bit. But I really want to get to a time where St. Louis can be seen as like the, tourist destination. I feel like at some point it used to be very, very popular to where everyone wanted to come to St. Louis. The way my parents described St. Louis, they went to SIUE in the 70s, 80s. They said St. Louis was the place. Like, they would leave school and they'd be like, okay, we want to go hang out for the weekend. We are going to St. Louis and have a ball, come back to school, that kind of a thing. And I imagine, how can we bring that back? How can we make St. Louis that hub for, entertainment and having all of these culturally diverse folks come to St. Louis and partake of what we have going on. So I'd say that with Levels, we're trying to do our small part, but I'd like to see more innovation and more risk taking and more investments, which we're seeing popping up everywhere. But I want to see more of that to where people, make St. Louis a tourist destination.
Right.
That's what I'd like to see.
Well, the work that you're doing is getting us there. The work that you're doing with Levels is a part of that story of where St. Louis is going, and for it to be that place to where folks are going because they're going to St. Louis. Because nobody questions when you go to New York or when you go to to LA or things like that. It's like, oh, you going to LA?
Yeah.
And Levels will be a part of that conversation of, oh, I'm going to St. Louis. And one of the places they're going to stop at is Levels.
Yes.
So
that is definitely one of our goals with its creation. So we're happy that we're adding a little bit, but I just really would like to galvanize more, business leaders and business owners to take chances like that. I think that St. Louis is going to be, I think it's going to happen. Honestly and truly,
it will.
Honestly and truly, I think it's going to happen. I think that there's a spotlight on St. Louis. I think that there's a lot of renewed energy coming to St. Louis. There's jobs coming to St. Louis. And when jobs come, entertainment follows. You have to build all the infrastructure to take care of those people that are coming here to work. So, I think that it's coming. I just look forward to it at this point.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Ono, once
you.
again, man, for coming on the podcast, and looking forward to getting some food down at Levels.
You gotta come soon, man.
Down on Wash Ave. What's the address for everybody?
It's 1405 Washington Avenue.
Y'all know where to go.
Sir.
Thanks,
Thank
Ono,
you.
man.
I appreciate you.